This is Sonya Morton-Firth, and you're watching The Break It Down Show.
This is great. Sonya is so prepared; she already knew what to do on the cue. This is this is awesome.
I love it, Pete, because that's normally my line. This is Sonya Morton-Firth, and you're tuned into the Sonya Morton-Firth show, so it's different.
So you're so good at it. No wonder.
It's great.
So Sonya has her own show on YouTube. I guess definitely recommend you watch it. She lives in England, so you're going to get a lot of English type guests, but a whole bunch of other guests too. But just when you look at her guest list, it's just fascinating to hear from an American's point of view, a different perspective on all these things that we're all trying to sort out. Her show is called the Sonya Morton-Firth Show. It's really simple. Here's the link on YouTube. You can guys go there. You know, the big thing about all of these shows, you guys, and you all know this, is rating, reviewing, commenting, sharing. These are small things, and it's really, really helpful to make the show grow. I can't tell you how hard it is to get YouTube convinced that you exist and are worthy to suggest. Sonya, I look on YouTube every day. I work on it all the time. And YouTube occasionally recommends my own show to me. That's how hard it is. And I've always...
It's impossible, isn't it? And I'm not the most technical person on the planet by any stretch of the imagination. So I just sort of thought when I first set this up, you put it out there and things will start happening really quickly. And then you realize there's all sorts of algorithms involved and this person that you've got to get engagement, and they keep changing the rules. And yeah, it's a difficult one to fathom out.
It is. And part of your background is like elite level fitness, where if you build it, it does come. Like you can go out and you can work your body into shape and learn all these things. It does not work that way in the show world. When you try to build something, we're coming up on 1,000 episodes, right? And the show has done fantastically well. It really, people have showed up for it, but these algorithms are the devil, and you have to satisfy. Like, here's the thing I learned on YouTube: you have to have this face, and then you have to put a graphic over it. That drives traffic because they think that that's somehow artistically important.
That sells it. Pete, I've got to congratulate you first of all for 1,000 shows. That is amazing, because so many people give up, don't they, in the early days? Everyone thinks it's easy. They start and they've got a great idea, they push it out, and then by episode 10, they're like, oh my God, this is way too much hard work. I can't be bothered to do this anymore. But 1,000 episodes, well done, congratulations. I'm a bit further away from you than 1,000, but I'm going to get there.
Well, yeah, let's make sure we don't underestimate what you've done. You've got quite not only a lot of shows, but fantastic guests too. I mean, you're getting guests at a level that is, seasoned and professional, because that's what you are now. I mean, it's incredible to see you build a show as we both go up this steep hill, right? We're doing well. We're creating these shows, and there are a lot of challenges, especially like we were just talking off mic. We're comparing notes on, oh shoot, I don't do enough of that, and you're like, I need to do that better. There's so many things. So you get to 10 episodes and you realize there are 25 disciplines that you have to still master before you're even doing this at a professional level.
Absolutely. What
were some of those things?
Is the hard part. You're busy thinking, well, what am I going to ask? Let me research my guest and get involved in their story and think about different things. And you forget actually how to push it. The next stage is pushing it out and getting their message out to as many people as possible.
Yeah. And if you don't write the title the right way, the computer's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You're like, it's the person's name. You have to write the right kind of title. It's crazy. What are some of the things that you've had to pick up and learn along the way in terms of the non-show stuff to make your show viable?
Wow, I guess everything. Now I'm sort of in a position that I do delegate a lot to I do have someone that helps me with my social media. I have a fantastic cameraman so I have mine filmed. So usually at the moment I'm doing Zoom interviews because of lockdown. We're in full lockdown here in England. I think you're the same over there as well. But before all of this craziness happened and the world changed, I was doing face-to-face interviews, and they were being filmed, and then they were going up on YouTube. And then the podcast it wasn't the afterthought, but we stripped out the audio for the podcast, and we did it the other way around. And then, of course, as things started developing with this global pandemic, we had to change things and move it more over to Zoom and online. So I guess, what have I learned? I've learned everything from, what's a thumbnail? I didn't know what a thumbnail was.
Yeah.
Taglines, hashtags, you name it, how to try and get the algorithm to recognize you. There's all sorts of things. That, and obviously learning about the guests and really focusing in on what I think my audience, what I can give my audience to my guests.
Yeah, no, there are so many things to consider. I mean, I think about just the skill of hosting and being able to, it's one thing to have a conversation, like we're having one right now, but just for the audience's sake, have no illusion. I am in control of this. I am truly hosting this conversation, and I'm keeping track of three things: what the show needs, what you need, and what the audience needs. And I'm tracking all of these things as I do it. And I have to build all these places in my brain to house these things, reminders, and sometimes I take notes and everything. Hosting something, I don't know about you, but when I come down off of a show, there's a high, and then I have to kind of just relax and reset.
I love it. And when I look back at my early episodes, I sort of cringe and go, oh, really, was I like that? And you really do evolve as a host, and how the chats evolve. And mine have become, I think, a lot more personable. You have to show your own personality as well. I think at the beginning I was this sort of very stilted, asking questions. And although I do research, I don't want to look at questions. I want to have a conversation with them. Like you rightly said, it's a chat, it's a conversation. And if actually you're truly listening to what they're saying, you can't be thinking about the next question because you don't know how they're going to answer. Yeah. So, you could prepare to your heart's content and they could start talking about something completely different. So, yeah, I think that's been a real learning curve.
The thing, so I was a spy before, and I got to ask a lot of people a lot of questions, and you don't have much time, so you have to be really refined in your question asking. So I would know the questions I would want to ask, but I didn't know which sequence of questions I was going to be asking for that person, right? And so I learned to listen for things, not to things. So yeah, I don't know what the next question is going to be because I've not heard the trigger yet to know which set of questions I want to get to, or where am I trying to drive you. And I say drive, I really should say, where am I trying to encourage you to go?
Yeah. So do you have that sort of preconceived idea, and you think, okay, this person, obviously you sort of, their background, you think, right, this is what I want to get out of this person. This is where I want the interview to go.
Yeah, well, the other thing is you have unique access to this person. What you owe the audience in part is, and the guest, you owe them to do something that they haven't done before, And so I always want my guests to say, you always see me pump my fist whenever they say interesting or, ooh, that's a good question. And I'll celebrate that because that's what we're looking for. That's what the audience needs. That's what that guest wants, to pull that brilliance out of them. What are some of your KPIs when you're out there and you're doing an interview, it's going well? What does that look like for you?
Do you know what? I think it's when I just forget about everything around me. I've got a cameraman there. I've got cameras around me, and I just zone out, and I'm literally just completely tuned into what my guest is, and I'm there in their story, whatever their story is. I mean, I interview a lot of military veterans, which I think, I don't know if that's where sort of we sort of got to know each other, but certainly their stories, I'm sort of in their stories, and I'm in the battlefield or whatever they're talking about. I'm experiencing their traumas, and if I can feel the emotion from the guest, I think that's when I know that I've hit something, and I know I'm on the right track.
Yeah, that affect-driven thing, it's one of the things, like the higher level of hosting is, you want to close on emotion. You want to find those emotions. And when you find that emotional moment, you've got to spend time in it because the audience is feeling that,
I mean, I'm a trained qualified coach as well. So, and I think that really, this was after my corporate life. I qualified and sort of went down the coaching route for a bit before I started the show. And the show, I didn't know sort of which to do first, and the coaching really helped me with the show. And now the show's taken off, and that's where I spend most of my time now, and I love it. But certainly, I think the questioning. I mean, you were a spy. What great! I mean, great for questioning techniques. You're going to have to give me a few tips, Pete.
Glad to do it. You can sign up for my question asking course. Go to everybody's got courses, and you said coaching, Sonya. Like, there's a difference between someone who's I kind of well, I'm just gonna have a go at people who are like 22-year-old fitness models. Like,
well, first of all, I'm not 22. I wish I was.
No, but I'm saying is like, you have to, like, you're adorable. You're 22. Of course you're in great shape. Nothing hurts. You don't have a real job. You look great in leotards, even if you don't work out, like, so this whole idea of being a coach, it's hard to take someone seriously if they don't have some scars on them. So how, talk about that.
Absolutely right. You, especially this word that we use, life coach. It's like, well, have you had a life? Have you had a life? You haven't had a life. How can you coach?
Right.
And I have had this conversation with a young guy. I remember I was at a party years ago. And I introduced myself and I said, oh, what do you do? And he said, I'm a life coach. And he looked about 12 years old. He was older than that, but he looked, looked young. And I went, wow, you're a life coach. You don't really look like you've done much living. And we had this conversation, and he really sort of talked to me and said, oh, anyone can have coaching skills. It's not about having the life. And I understand what he means, having done my coaching qualification, but you can't be experienced, right? Yeah. I mean, we're just talking about our podcasting experience, and day one I knew nothing, and I look back and I was awful. I'm a year and a half down the line, and I'm so much better, but still nowhere where I want to be. And that, I think that goes with anything in life, right? You can't master something unless you practice or you've done something, you've experienced something. So if you're sitting listening to somebody talking about whether it be trauma, whether it be their business experience, they want advice with, whether it be relationship breakup, whatever it is that they're seeking some sort of coaching, then I do think it helps absolutely, even though you're not imparting your experience, it's at least you've got that sort of that knowledge base, or you've experienced something in life, I think. And it depends, again, on what type of coaching. So, for example, I would never dream of getting a health and fitness coach who hadn't ever lifted a weight or knew how to master their body, right? You just wouldn't dream of it.
Yeah. You have to be a credible coach. 99% of the time, you have to have the requisite experience. I mean, it's one thing to say obvious things like, and I'm going to give you an example. A lot of my friends are desperate to help me, and they want to help. And I'm like, okay, great. And then they give me more work to do. And I'm like, you're just giving me more work. You're not really helping me. You're just saying I should do this or I should do that. And you don't even know enough about my business to understand, what it is. Like, we were talking, like, what are you promoting right now? Well, I'm promoting this show, but I also, you promote your coaching side thing. We're trying to lift businesses, and you also have your Sonya brand. We're trying to lift these three brands together, and then so I'll bring this problem to a friend of mine, and we'll just be chatting. They're like, well, what you need to do is more work. Just add this whole no, my plate's full. Like
9 times out of 10, they've never done it, and it's everyone out there has an opinion. Yeah. Everyone can do it better, but they've never done it themselves, right? And that's what you get. So it's a bit like when you never ask your friend's opinion because you will get an opinion. But if you want a true opinion that you take on board, ask an expert, right? Ask someone that's been there, that's done that, that's been successful, or whatever you've done. Don't ask somebody that's never done it, because of course they're going to have an opinion, but the world has got an opinion.
Yeah, and like in terms of the show, one of the things I say to a lot of people is like, they'll tell me their idea. Oh, my idea is so good. I'm like, I don't care about your idea. I care, can you work 10 hours per episode? You know, can you, or do you have that kind of time? Or if they say, how do I monetize? And I'm like, well, first off, you don't.
You don't.
Like,
You don't.
but this is the stuff you have to experience. And like, I don't want to break your bubble, but if I'm going to help you, I need to know that you're serious. If I'm going to coach you, right, I need to know that you're going to come to this gym every day. And when I tell you to do sissy squats, you're going to do them because I know what to do. I can get you to a higher place than you are right now.
Exactly. And it's taking on board that advice and really, yeah, I mean, that's why people take on mentors and certainly coaches as well. It's like, because they've got experience, doing what you want.
As we sit across the table, or in your case, across the let's look like the kitchen, sort of, from the person that you're talking to, you are being mentored. You are mentoring the audience indirectly. Let's talk about your editorial decisions. Who are you trying to bring in front of them? Who are you desperate to get on the show? What kind of guests have really proven out to be incredible for you?
So I started out, Pete, just wanting to interview inspiring people and people that I say live outside the box. And when I say live outside the box, I'd spent a career I was a very successful career woman, 20 years in the city of London. I was actually traveling a lot to the US, working in the financial sector, a woman in a man's world. And I was very successful at it. I got to the stage at 40 where I was like, wow, do you know what? From a money perspective, I'm doing pretty okay. From a am I fulfilled perspective, I was completely, unfulfilled, the ultimate failure, right? Successful on paper, had the money, and just had no sense of fulfillment. And when I left the corporate world the first time, I set up my own business, and I went down the fashion gym wear brand because I love health and fitness. That was my passion. Sort of went down, that didn't work. I went back to corporate life, and I came out again and retrained as a coach. And in between, I did a lot of work on myself and personal growth. But one thing that really stuck out for me is, why is it that the majority, and I'm not saying everybody, but the majority of people just do exactly what they're told? They go to school, go to university, get a corporate 9-to-5 job, and they retire. They work for their weekends. They work for their 2-week vacation or holiday. And other than that, they don't question their life. And 9 times out of 10, they hate their job. They can't wait to get home. When they get home, they open up, a drink or whatever to drown their sorrows, because they can't be, the thought of going back into work the next day is just horrible. Gets to Sunday night, the dread feeling. I remember those Sunday nights thinking, oh God, it's Monday tomorrow. Oh. So when I came out, I just thought, why, there is a choice. We all have a choice. Let me interview some of these amazing people that have led amazing lives, that have got inspiring stories, and have got messages to give out to society. So in a way, it's that I want people to listen to my guests and just think outside the box. Whether that be, wow, listen to this amazing veteran that's just gone through awful adversity, challenges, and now is stepping up and serving again by getting their message out in some way. Whether it's somebody that's gone through mental health issues, traumas, addictions through drugs or alcohol, turn themselves around and again leading an inspiring life. Honestly, it could be anyone from any walks of life. Businessmen that again have done extraordinary things, have set up extraordinary businesses. Everything. During the first lockdown here, I did a COVID series, so I had to change the way I was doing things. So rather than looking at necessarily inspiring sort of personalities, I looked at the ordinary person that was stepping up with acts of kindness in COVID. So people like nurses, doctors, frontline workers, delivery people that were helping the homeless, charities. There was a real sense of community here in the UK, certainly the first time around. So yeah, I think for me, it's all about getting people thinking that actually we don't have to lead the life your parents tell you you have to lead. You don't have to lead the life that society, that the media, that social media are telling you have to lead. You've got a choice. You have one life, right? Live it your way. Do what you want to do, and your dreams can come true, and don't let anyone say they can't. And that's really the premise of the show is look at what people have been through, and they've gone on and done what they want to do.
You've had John DeMartini on the show. I think you had Mark Victor Hansen on the show. Yeah, and his wife. Oh my gosh, those guys are wonderful.
They're amazing. And John DeMartini, I mean, he personally changed my life. He's the reason I'm sitting doing what I'm doing now. I mean, I did his breakthrough experience, and he really goes down and digs deep into what your values are, and believes that each one of us are individual. And if you can tap into your own gifts, then you can really shine and start enjoying life and feeling like you're leading a more fulfilled life.
You know, one of the things I learned from my combat time was like, you know, the ground truth. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, we're going to get in the gym every day and work out, but like, what does it take? And it takes getting up at 6:15 so that you can drive down to the gym, and don't forget your gloves. So always put your gloves by your key. You know, all of these little things that allow the bigger things that are just like, now you're at the gym. Now you know you're going to have a workout. Like, have a state of mind statement. Like when I go to swim, I primarily swim to work out. There's a bubble around the pool. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to get in this pool. I don't want to get in this pool. So I have to like go, hey, Pete, you love swimming. You're going to feel great when you get out. And as soon as you get in, you know, the water's going to feel wonderful. It's not really cold, you know, but I have to talk myself. These are the things that I have to do at the ground level to remind myself how much I enjoy swimming. It's impossible to feel bad after you go for a mile swim. It's just impossible. I mean, assuming you can swim a mile, right? Yeah. It's impossible to come out and be like, I feel worse.
Yeah, because it's a sense of achievement, right? You've done something, you've set yourself a task, and you've completed it, and you've done it. And I think now more than ever, it's so important for us to think, I mean, just little goals or just little tasks that we can get into, and it can give you a sense of achievement. And certainly on the working out front, it's having that determination to do it and form a habit every day.
My former Army commander, Eric Kleinsmith, put a quote up now. He's listening in. He said, Pete, where do you get these amazing guests?
I've just seen it pop up. I love
Isn't
that.
Great?
Hi,
so here's what's great about a podcast for those that don't know. And I want to see how you experience. I've been at this for a while, so maybe I've got a different approach, but the people that I have on the show become friends. They can become people I talk to, I collaborate with. I didn't know Eric anymore. And even when we were in the Army, because of our job, I barely spoke to the man, right? I mean, I knew he was my commander. I always remember his name, everything. But we've become much closer because of the show. You know, I have all these people in my life, and I'm like,
it's amazing.
Yes.
And, you know, they say that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. And to be honest, my podcast, my show has just made my network so much more inspiring, vast. I'm filling my days with positive people, with people that have done amazing things. And like you say, you know, I'm in contact with them. So if I've got a question or a query, and, you know, I know they were a particular expert on that, I'll still message them, or we'll still stay in touch. Absolutely. And in fact, just before Christmas, I met a veteran, and we did Walk the Wounded together, and he'd been on my show, and we did a sort of a sponsored walk together, and that's lovely. We keep in touch. So yeah, I definitely keep in touch with my guests. And I think that I can't tell you how wonderful that is, because I don't know another way of expanding your network so quickly with such amazing people.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things I figured out was to bring other co-hosts in. So, like, look, you know, at the end of the show, I'll say, hey, anytime you want to create something or produce an episode, let's do it together. Or I'll bring someone on who makes sense. Like yesterday, we had an author who wrote a book about. We have a gun right here called the Second Amendment that allows us all to have guns. It's just basic right. But we can't decide on what to do about it because we also have a lot of gun violence. And so she is a very left-leaning, let's control guns kind of person. And so I'm like, okay, great. Now let me go get this guy Ryan Petty that I know now because of the show. And his daughter was killed in a school shooting, and he's like, let's work on the mental problem of these school shooters, and so you have this incredible conversation that I get to have because I can bring Ryan in, or I can bring Sonya in, I can bring other people in, which also expands my network in a new way. Because now, like, you have a podcast, you probably don't care, but if you don't have a podcast, I'm like, you have a podcast now, you can have these conversations now, and it's just such a multiplier to bring in even more people, even more ranges of people. So when people say, oh, you have to niche, I'm like, yeah, my niche is a giant array. And I take in everything. I illustrate life, and I think you do the same thing.
Yeah, completely. It was really strange because, as I say, I started off with just the premise of inspiring people, and then before you know it, I was attracting a lot of veterans because they have very inspiring stories. You know this, and the more I was, I've not served myself. My grandfather served in the Second World War. But other than that, I didn't have sort of a military background, and yet I was hearing all these stories and thinking, "Wow, I'm feeling a passion to help veterans and people that have gone through these adversities." So, I did consider, and I thought, well, do I niche to becoming more of a veteran show, just to sort of concentrate on veterans? And although I am still interviewing veterans, I like you said, Pete, I took the decision not to just go down the veteran route because, there are podcasts out there just for veterans. And I think they do an amazing job.
Yes.
But because of my background, I think it's better that I sort of generalize, but still obviously take on board veterans as much as possible because their stories are amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that I love all my veteran peers and everything, and those that do podcasts, but I get worn out about it. And that's sort of how my editorial process, I'm sort of sick of booking COVID guests, like people who are, even if they're inspirational, I'm like, I've told this story. And I sort of use myself as my editorial board as I try to decide, like, what's too much or what do I need more of? And I usually try to think of it in the positive, like, what would be interesting to talk today, or here's the ultimate test for me. If I get pitched an idea or I read a news story and I say, oh God, that would be an uncomfortable conversation, I instantly go towards it because I know there's growth there,
Yeah. And do you, have you say you've sort of gone away now from the COVID stories, and did you look at the sort of the conspiracy theory side? I mean, I've stayed away.
Yeah.
From it. I mean, I tend to have a lot of guests that talk about the mental health side of what we're going through and lockdowns, etc., which absolutely can, if I can help people by people tuning in and listening to that, absolutely. But I've steered clear of going down the sort of the political route, although, I've got my own opinions. We've all got our opinions. I've sort of not gone down that route. And I sort of sometimes think, should I go down that route?
I think you should. I think if it's uncomfortable, you have to explore it. I mean, did the virus come out of a lab? I remain convinced that it has until I see, some evidence otherwise. Do I trust China to tell the truth? No. Do I trust my government to tell the truth? No. so I don't know.
And you can add in the British government as well,
Yeah. And so when I look at these things, I don't mind having someone on with an alternate point of view because I have the ability to bring another perspective on. There is a problem with this, though. Like, I had a lady on recently who studied, at least in our country, there's an explosion of male to female transition in pre-pubescent and adolescent kids. And when I say an explosion, I mean like on the order of like 10,000 times. Lot more.
Explosion of what? Of this
transitioning girls to boys, girls that want to become boys. And so there's literature and there's science, and that, they've studied this for a long time, and all of a sudden we have this massive spike. And so this author drives people crazy because the activists and the ideologists don't like examining with rigor the conversation. And so I have her on. Here's the problem with doing these conversations, though. That instantly makes me some kind of person who's anti-trans, which I'm not at all. I've got friends that have trans kids. I'm all for it. I support them, and I want to make sure that they're all right. But we also can have a science-based conversation that's challenging
That
on
is,
how do we deal with it.
I didn't realize there was so much of a spike. I knew it was more of a trend. Certainly when I left corporate life, they were all changing the toilets to sort of unisex, and you never knew which one to go in. And girls dressing more like boys and being androgynous and all this sort of. I just thought, well, you know what?
Yeah, whatever, right?
Because it's pretty serious if you want to actually change your sexual identity permanently to go down that route. That's
Especially as a child and you're a parent. And part of the problem with this whole movement is as a child, as someone who's not even in high school yet, you can go to your school and say, my name is now Carrie. I want to be treated like a girl. And then they'll put you on a psychological path and they do this all without the parent's knowledge. And so that's like where we get into this problem of, hey, I'm a parent. If you were to do this in any other aspect, your kid wants to make this life-altering change, it would either, one, be illegal, or two, you would always have to make sure the parent was along the way. But there's this belief that parents can't be part of it. So, and the point, not to have this whole conversation, the point is when you offer this conversation, people instantly, without listening to the show, will assume that I'm anti-trans, or that we haven't had a healthy conversation about that, and that I wouldn't offer the alternate perspective and have someone not trans and be an advocate, which I absolutely would. And so you can be niched by somebody, and who cares what they think, but it does matter to me when it's friends and family, when they start to niche something like that.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you're the host. You're presenting a side of a point of view. Right. It doesn't mean you disagree or agree with it, right? I mean, you can make your opinions clear, and I certainly would make my opinions clear. Maybe not as forthright as whoever I'm interviewing, but you are who you are inside. But you can absolutely have a guest swinging one way, and it doesn't mean that you're necessarily the opposite or in line with them. Not at all. And I think it's good to have these conversations because you're opening up the audience to think,
right?
Not just to assume, and not just to say, well, this is how it is. Actually, shouldn't we question our son and daughter if they're a kid and saying all these things? I mean, I remember when I was a child, my God, I wanted to be Charlie's Angels, a detective, or this or that or the other. I love it. So, and you do, and it is good to, obviously it's good to encourage children to have dreams. Absolutely not knocking that, but I guess it's how serious do you take that and go down that line?
Yeah. And then how do you let someone who doesn't have your child's best interest in heart, who doesn't know your child, doesn't provide for your child, how does that person, how are they allowed to inculcate, to influence your kid's decision in a completely altering way? It's a very dangerous thing. And if we can't even have the conversation that, about, hey, how do we get this right? Because here's the thing about this specific problem. It's limited to a very small ethnicity and financial group. So it's absolutely a cultural thing.
Wow. So, I mean, I've not heard about this here in England, in the UK. But we're always a little bit more conservative and behind you guys. So.
It's interesting when you get to have these conversations, the secondary and tertiary things that start to impact who you are. Ultimately, for me, what I try to do, and I'm positive you're in the same way, but I want to hear what you think. If I just rely on my principles, because I know who I am, right? I mean, I've been around the block. I've tried different things who I wasn't, but I am authentic. I am rugged. I'm going to deal in the ground truth, and I'm going to ask questions, not solely from my ego perspective, but from the audience perspective. The audience is desperate to know this about what you just said, so let me ask that. So I present all of these things as a host, and as long as I stick to that kind of straightened path that I know works, you can say, "Oh, I heard this on your show," and I'm not going to be afraid of what I might have said because I just start by trying to be honest,
Yeah, and that's all you can be. In fact, that's what you have to be. You have to be honest. And, you have to be true to who you are, true to yourself, true to your purpose. Otherwise, what is the point, right? And I think, that's where I was years ago. I wasn't true to who I was. I was pretending I was this career woman in the finance world, thinking this was all great, but that wasn't me. I hated wearing suits. Oh my God. I mean, I used to dress like a man half of the time. That wasn't me. I like glamorous clothes and feeling like I'm a woman, and you had to suppress all that. That absolutely wasn't. So, I mean, that actually, you just nailed the point that you have to be yourself. And when you really figure out who you are, embrace it and let it out, definitely.
All right, let me talk to Coach Sonya then. How do I do that? I mean, you and I we know who we are because we've got the scars. We've, had all these things happen to us, and we can look back and go, this is who I am. And even if we get a little off the path, we go, well, I know where I'm at, and get right back to it. How do you build that?
How do you build who you are? How do you figure out who you are?
How do you sort that out? How do you tell 15 years ago Sonya, who's wearing suits and looking like a man, that that's not her? How do you help her?
You know what? If I look back at where I was back then, I don't know if I could have told myself, because I was so driven. I was so determined that this is how I wanted my life. This is how I wanted it to be. And I was successful because I was so driven, because I had a vision, because I was determined. But all I was focused on was money, and climbing that career ladder. And actually, it wasn't. I was trying to prove a point to my parents. If I look back now, I can see I was trying to prove that I could be successful to my parents, because when I was a kid, I was always in my brother's shadow, because he was a super triple ace Cambridge PhD student, and I was always, but Sonya does okay, but I was always in his shadows. Now that was just my paradigm and what I saw and my own filters. So throughout my 20s and 30s in this financial career, I just wanted to prove myself. I just wanted to go, drive, determination. So if I look back then, could I have told young Sonya then, hey, listen, life it's not always about the money. I mean, money is important. I'm not saying that money isn't important, but there are other things that are far more important, and feeling fulfilled is one of them. I don't think I would have listened to that.
Okay, so this is my hard question for you then. Is that a failing of young Sonya, current Sonya, or both, to not be able to influence your younger self?
No, I don't think it's a failing. I wouldn't change anything. I think every single step, certainly I've made, and I think everyone makes, is.
I'm not saying change your path. I'm saying that if current Sonya showed up to young Sonya and said, this is not what you want, and you can't convince her, somebody didn't do their job. Either young Sonya was too
young Sonya wasn't. So you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And the same with coaching. The teacher appears when the student's ready, and the student, my students, I certainly wasn't ready in my 20s. Maybe I was more ready sort of in my 30s, definitely, but certainly not in my 20s. I wasn't ready for that. I was all about living the life and really, definitely not. So I think you've got to be open to it, and you've got to be open to coaching. You can't, if someone's not ready, if their mind's not open, then it doesn't matter what you tell them, that they're not really going to listen.
And then this is true for everybody, right? This is a universal human value. And so when we see people desperate to influence somebody else, you have to realize that we all are going to move at our own pace. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Now that's an interesting conversation, influence, because I mean, we're surrounded in an era of influencers. We were just talking about social media earlier, Pete, and I don't know what your views on social media are. I mean, I can say I hate it. It's a necessary tool.
Right.
I see it as a marketing tool, which is what it is. But for me, I prefer to see and talk to people rather than spend my life doing this with the phone. And I find it very difficult to put myself out. I know I need to put myself out there more. You're building a brand, you're building your personality, you need to be showing who you are. It still feels a little bit alien to me. I don't know what your views are on that, Pete.
Yeah, it's a struggle, because I don't want to be consumed by the ego-driven part of it, because I've learned as an adult, like, my ego is important, but it mostly needs to stay in its cage, because if I let it out too much, it gets crazy. But you have to participate in the way that people communicate. You know, like right now, I'm literally rubbing this weed cream on my knuckles. This is not an ad, but like I'm literally doing this, and this is a brand I support, and I have a little code that I do that. So how do I'm not going to make a video.
What is it? It's weed.
It's a CBD kind of.
Oh.
It's like a. But it's like my knuckles are sore, right? And because I'm 51 years old, and my knuckles hurt, so I'm rubbing it on.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And this will feel better in a few minutes. And so I could go on to Instagram and be like, here's my weed cream and all that kind of thing, right? But it wouldn't be genuine with who I am. And so I haven't figured out how to do that. I mean, I post all the time on Twitter. I have 4,000 followers, not even 4,000, and it never grows. So I just don't spend time where there's no traction. And I do try to spend time, for me, on trying to figure out, like, I'll try new things. I'll constantly revisit different sites and everything, but I'm not going to invest much effort where there's not much return for the effort. So I know if I put out a show every day, my numbers continue to go up. That hasn't changed. But if I go on Twitter and I, produce 5 times the amount of tweets, I don't get any more followers. I'm not satisfying whatever they want. And I'm not interested in being on a site that doesn't work for me and has so much poison on it. I'm not selling poison. I'm trying to sell positivity.
No. But then you get these big influencers out there, and I'm thinking of Instagram. You've got the big Instagram models, and
yes.
They're standing next to a Ferrari, and again, they look like kids, and they look amazing, and they've got this girlfriend, or the girl with the boy, supermodels, and luxury houses, yachts, houses, and you think, wow, is that really all real? Really?
I always think about, I used to have to do handyman work because no one would hire me to do anything else. And I think about the maintenance on those things. Like, you've got a $10,000 a year maintenance budget to have all that stuff you're standing around. Your gardener must be $500 a month. That's what I think about, because these things, these images, they're so unreal. Like, yeah, I get it. You've got a nice house. I know some people that are incredibly wealthy, that are incredibly famous. I mean, people who, you say their name or you say the name of what they did and you know who they are. They don't brag about their houses.
No.
They drive humble cars. Sure, they've got a nice car, but they don't drive around in a Lamborghini on day-to-day stuff. That's stupid.
And they don't take photos of it every 5 seconds because it's just like, all right, or their house, just their house.
No, yeah. So they have a brand, they built it, but they built it on something different than vapid. And just, again, like, we're not vapid people, No,
not at all. It's just interesting, I think, what sells and how you boost your audience. And, as I say, I'm having this dilemma myself. So it's like, what works, what doesn't work, and what's the best way. But I think, what you said earlier is you've got to be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. And when you know who you really are, you've got to let that out. And I think too many people, and myself included, has been in fear of letting that out because of what people may think. I think one of the biggest fears we've all got, we all say we've got fear of loss, abandonment, this, that, the other. But one of the greatest fears is the fear of judgment, and the fear of judgment from others. And if you think about it, it's really ridiculous, right? Because why should we give a shit what other people think? I mean, in the end of the day, we're all individuals. Yeah. You're not going to be liked by everyone. You're just not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Yeah. Some people are going to like you. Some people are going to hate you. Like Dr. John Martini says, it's all about balance. You can't have good without bad, and you can't have haters without non-haters. So that's right. It's an interesting conundrum, because that fear will stop a lot of people doing what they want to do.
Yeah, you can't fear who you are. You can't fear mistakes to figure it out. And I say this all the time on the show, like my bonsai tree of life, and I've snipped off all the mistakes, it's just a stick. Like this, it's just, it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be who you are, and as you eliminate these mistakes, life will continue to give you the same lesson. It'll offer it over and over again in just worse and worse, more painful versions of it until you learn it,
oh my God, never a true word has been spoken. And you will keep getting it back, and it will look pretty similar, but you still won't see the red flags. Trust me, I've been there. Until finally you're sitting there going,
this seems awfully familiar. I think I've been down this road again.
Yes. That's so true. When I was walking in, you know, I have to leave I'm in the backyard in a tent. And so it's 30 steps.
The tent. I was
Yes.
trying to think of this. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's 30 steps. I have to leave the house, you know, 12 minutes before I'm going to start, you know, depending on what's set up in here, you know, because I got to build the marquee and all those things. I'll find my young self going, yeah, we got time. We got time. And I'm like, stop it, young self. We need to get in there, get calmed down, you know. It's just,
you need to prepare. You need to prepare.
But I still have to learn that lesson. I've trained myself to not do that anymore, to grab everything that I need, double check it, make sure it's all, you know, I've trained myself to do, but it's taken 50 years to get here. It's so crazy how much life just continues to go, hey, put this off, procrastinate, be a little bit lazy, and it'll feel good. Then I'm like, it does not feel good. I don't like
you know what? I'm going to hit my big 50 this year, and there's something that's sort of in me that's saying I'm dreading it, but I should embrace it.
It's not that bad. It's actually, I would say it's a lot better because there's so much growth in your 40s. And this is great. Eric puts this thing up here. When you get to 40, you get your don't give a shit card. You can play it the rest of your life. He's totally right. You know, you can just be like, this doesn't matter. You know, whatever it is, I'm not going to put time and effort into that. And I think at 50, you reach a different, like you've figured those gears out from being 40. I'm sure there's things coming up in the 50s that, you know, are not as much fun, but it's not that bad over this side of the line.
Yeah, I think it's just you've got to remember, you know, you're not quite as young as you used to be, although I'm not, you know, I'm still a great believer in having fun, and you can still look good. You just got to keep up the health and fitness and all the rest of it.
What's fun for you? How do you have fun?
How do I have fun?
In normal times, not COVID times.
I was about to say, I'm totally honest with you, those fun days seem like a long time ago. Gosh, how do I have fun? Do you know what? I still love dancing.
Oh, that's good.
And I like to go out and have a dance. And there's quite a big scene here of people round about my age that are still going out dancing and having a good time. So you don't have to feel like you're the oldest on the dance floor, but you're still having a really, really good time. But yeah, meeting friends. I mean, for me, it's all about who I'm with and the energy. So that's really, really important for me. And that's why this is so hard, I guess, because you know, you can't be with people, you can't be with your friends, but you know, we'll get through it. We'll get through it.
Yeah. We can take this. We can deal with it. The fellowship, the community, and again, because of the show, wherever I go, I can say, "Hey, do you want to get together?" And granted, COVID, you know, I don't want to put anything on anybody if we don't get together because of that. Great, but like if I come out to London, I'm going to be like, "Hey, Sonya, I'm going to be in town." Oh my
God, you better! Right? Absolutely, completely.
This is the greatest thing. Yeah. So the show again gives another dividend in that you know these people who are desperate to see you, and you're like, every time you can put two people together who are desperate to see each other.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I had Greg Reed on the show. Well, it's just gone out on Monday, and he's the big movie producer of Wishman. And yeah, he was like, look, when I'm in London, we're definitely going out. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Definitely, you know, and Pete, you're always welcome. I'd love to see, and when I'm over that way as well, I can't wait till it all opens up again.
Yeah, come over to Orange County and we'll hang out and we'll have a good time, or anywhere in LA. So I want to ask you, you had a guest on when I was doing my prep, and I can't recall his name, but he was he wanted to be a soccer player or a football player, as you guys would say, association ball. But he didn't make it, but he ended up becoming a presenter instead, an announcer.
Michael Kern. Yes, Michael Kern. Michael is the lovely, in fact, I'm going to have to tag him on this. He was full of energy, and we had this great, and it was exactly a year ago. I think it was about a year ago, because it was before COVID stuff had happened. It was face to face, and you could feel his energy, and he was a great guy.
People like Michael who get to achieve their dream, because his dream is to work in football, right?
Yeah,
he pictured it being on the field.
Presenter. Well, he was a football presenter.
Right. I mean, but this is the dream, right? Like as a little kid, you can think of maybe 15 jobs. You don't realize there are 1,000 jobs around the one job you think you might want. So you're working in the field that you love. I mean, doing something that is already, I mean, it's also a dream job to present the games and everything. But it's interesting to see those people when they realize that, oh, I just have to go over here and now I get to do my dream job.
Yeah, exactly. And do you know what? But all of us are just a few feet away from that dream job, that dream business, that career, doing what we really want to do. It's just something gets in the way. And as I say before, it's usually the fear of it, fear of something, fear of not being good enough, fear of what other people will think, fear of, oh my gosh, but will I make money? Will I do this? And they're all excuses. In the end of the day, just go for it, right? That old Nike ad, just absolutely go for it. What have you got to lose?
Right.
And in the end of the day, isn't the biggest loss lying on your deathbed, thinking if only?
Yeah.
And that was my biggest thing, actually, which is why I started my show, which is why I left my corporate job, which is why I tried my fashion business. I just don't want to be lying there thinking, God, if only I'd done that. I wish I'd done that. I wish, that let's just live the life, do it. It's never too late. It's absolutely never too late to try something you've always wanted to do.
I read a number and had a guest on who talks about this kind of stuff. The most successful businesses are started by people who are over 50 years old, and they don't stop. They continue to start businesses. Yeah. And she called them maturepreneurs. Like if you start a business at 65, it's basically going to work because you know what you're doing at this point, and they are very, very successful. So yeah, we have a lot of things to look forward to. I had a friend of mine, he's still a friend, but he said, I didn't figure anything out till I'm 60. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I got plenty of time to make mistakes. I got all kinds. So you get to not be so hard on yourself. Like, this is just a thing that didn't work out. Let me do the next thing or whatever it is.
Well, this is it. And you hear about people that say, oh, I'm going to retire. What are you going to do when you retire? And I'm like, I'm not going to retire. What? I mean, retire from life. What? This doesn't feel like work. This is what I want to be doing. It's not, the idea of you work till a certain age, you get your gold clock, and then you retire. It's like, well, what exactly are you going to do when you retire? Just put your feet up all day? You'll get bored stiff, There's got to be something that you love doing, and that, the idea of retirement is really is something that I would never do.
Your show is called the Sonya Morton-Firth Show. That happens to be your name. How lucky for you that was available and everything. And it's available on YouTube. That's the best place for it. What are two things that you have learned, one on the positive and one on the negative, like a negative that you maybe have cut out? But what are two things you've picked up along the way from your guests specifically?
Wow. Okay. One of I guess the biggest thing I've learned is the human spirit and the human body can go through some absolutely awful things and be put through some terrible things the majority of us, can't even dream about or have nightmares about. But where there is a mindset and a real ability to overcome those adversities, then it's the mind that really can that can change things. And I've interviewed veterans with with only one limb left because they've been blown up in Afghanistan, and to hear how humble they are and still wanting to serve and help other people. I think, that really, it puts everything into context to think, you know what, we're really, really strong inside. And if you can really tap into that strength, everything else isn't important, because that I guess is the soul, and without getting all religious and, it's the spirituality side. I think I haven't quite realized how strong the human soul is.
And I would add to that love. You
Yeah.
can lean on love and you can never, it won't fail you. It'll just continue. It's the most powerful thing I've ever encountered as a human. It's just this love. Just if you're not sure what to do, try to figure out how to love your way out of it, because it's just incredible. And that's an old man thing to say, but honestly, like you can always back up, go, okay, how do I approach this? And if you think, maybe try some grace, maybe try some love. And then I promise you will have another approach that you can try. Maybe you suck at it, but if you back up and try love and grace, you'll get a good run at it and probably knock it down over time,
And I mean, people cannot hate you if you love, if you just love them back. The more they don't love, well, just love them more, because you can't fail to love somebody, or at least be open-hearted to somebody that is just giving you love, right?
Yeah. We have a lot of intolerance going on here in the States, and intolerance is a universal human value. It's an easy default thing. I don't like that. I'm going to be prejudiced against it. And I'm trying to encourage my friends and my people and everything that, if you focus on love, if you focus on unity, if you focus on tolerance, I can't tolerate hate. Well, now you're in a hate circle, because if you hate, how do you get out of that? Right. You have to change that.
And actually that takes me to one of my most beautiful guests, Derek Mills. Derek Mills, if you can check him out, and he talks about love and this exact same thing. And, how just give love, that's the most precious thing. And his interview moved me a lot, actually. And again, he's very, very spiritual guy. And I learned a lot from that. And sometimes it is about someone's presence, their aura, their, how they put things. But yeah, I've learned a lot from my guests.
What are you working on now? What are you working on next? Obviously, the show is top of the list, but what are you, fashion design? What is it going to be?
Well, not fashion design. I don't think I'd go down that route again. It's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. I'm about to launch a production company. So SMF Productions is the company name, and we are going to help people that want promotional video. I mean, we're not on Zoom, but we're looking at a computer screen, and video consumption has gone up massively because of what we're going through. We can't sit face to face. So I'm producing video content, whether that be for people's podcasts, so audio and visual, or whether it be documentaries or short promo videos, or someone that just wants to tell their brand story, right? What better way than, rather than that cold, hard sales pitch, get people to understand who you are, who your story is. And then people buy people in the end of the day. So that's another sort of branch to SMF Productions. So we're launching that next week. We're all ready to go. And it's really high quality production. I've got some great cameramen, and I'm really, really excited to see where it all goes.
Oh, I'm excited about the SMF Productions. Yeah, that'll be, and like you said, it's an exploding market, and we all want to tell these stories, and we have the ability to do it. It's all time and money, So if you have a lot of time, use that. If you have a lot of money, use that. If you don't have either, just use a lot of time. All right. Anything in closing? You want to ask me anything else otherwise? Or?
Well, Pete, I'm dying to hear your story, but that might be another show, right?
That will be. I mean, when I'm on your show.
No, I just want to say thank you so much. It really has been an honor being your guest, and it's been great. It's like I've had you sitting in my living space, and just having a cup of tea, having a chat. So no, I've really enjoyed it, Pete. I just want to say you're doing an amazing job, getting people's stories out, and it's just great.
Well, I appreciate you saying all those things, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Stand by for 1 second. Let me roll my little post-show video, and I'll be right back. Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much for watching.